At the most fundamental level, this is a human. Your bones, your muscle, your skin can all be thought of as sort of a shell grown around this organism to help protect it and allow it to manipulate its environment. All of your thoughts, your personality, your behavior come from this nervous system that is buried inside your physical body. And on some level, we can think of that body as a barrier between your conscious nervous system and the world around it. Your brain does not directly experience the objects and the sounds and the sensations in its environment. For example, vision has to be projected through your lens to your retina. It has to go down your optic nerve through a brain region called the thalamus and ultimately to your visual cortex in the back of your head. So what is fed to your conscious self is a highly processed downstream echo of the original image that was projected to your eyes. The same can be said for sound, taste, smell, touch, temperature. None of these sensations are directly experienced by your conscious brain. So for example, this is your sensory motor cortex. There have been actual studies where we have put electrodes in the brains of real human people, and we've asked them, what does it feel like when I apply an electrical signal here? And they'll say stuff like, it feels like there's pressure on my elbow, or there's an ice cube on my kneecap. And these perceived physical sensations are indistinguishable from the real thing, which means that every experience you've ever had could be, theoretically, perfectly mimicked by directly stimulating just the right neurons in each of these brain regions. So it's possible that technology may one day exist that can directly insert electrical stimulation into your brainstem or your thalamus or these brain regions directly. And if done on a precise enough level, the resulting experience would be genuinely indistinguishable from reality.
Oh my God.
Now, if this technology was utilized by video games one day, the processors involved would need to be feeding your brain data at an incredible rate because your brain is capable of processing an insane amount of visual or acoustic or spatial resolution. But as high as it might be, there is a limit to the amount of data your brain can process, which means that given a powerful enough graphics processing unit, it would be possible to match both the resolution and frame rate that you experience walking through the world every day. Now, it's important to note that this is not going to happen anytime soon. The brain processes information in multiple layers. Currently, our ability to directly stimulate the human brain is limited to the very outer surface layers of the cerebral cortex. There are some recent studies that have had success stimulating deeper layers, which allows us to input images with higher resolution, but we are just barely scratching the surface of this technology. Additionally, these implants, like any new prototypical technology, come with downsides. There is a potential risk of damaging the brain tissue or the surrounding neurons. And additionally, there's a social barrier to this kind of technology. There are already companies talking about planting chips in the human brain, which is scary. That's a lot of trust to put into a company, especially when it comes to brand new technology. So while this is a purely theoretical discussion and will be for a very long time, it's interesting to know that it's not impossible. In this scenario, video games would no longer be just about graphics and audio. They would involve touch, temperature, taste, smell responses, and they would maybe even have optional pain settings. Again, as interesting as all this is, it is equally terrifying. It's not hard to imagine how the ability to entirely alter someone's reality could be abused in the wrong hands.
It's compact, it's safe, it's comfortable, everything you want in a new liver. The price, $756,000.
But in a much less dystopian sense, this tech could have very beneficial applications too. As primitive as our current ability to directly stimulate the nervous system is, we have already produced things like cochlear implants and auditory brainstem implants that directly feed audio information to the brain, the part of the brain that ultimately processes sound. And this has restored hearing to people who experience certain types of deafness and hearing loss. Researchers are also currently working on very early models of the same thing, but for vision. They're basically electrodes hooked up to a camera that directly stimulate either the visual cortex or the optic nerve or even potentially the retina and artificially send visual information to your brain. And just like cochlear implants, this technology has the potential to restore sight to people who are blind. So whether or not this tech even exists one day, and whether or not it's ever used for entertainment or medical applications or slightly more nefarious purposes, the simple fact that it could possibly exist, theoretically exist one day, sheds a little philosophical light on the nature of consciousness and our experience of the world. This little human organism, it has no skin, it has no ears, it has no tongue or nose. Its entire reality is made up of electrical signals being passed from neuron to neuron. Its experience of reality relies on data being fed directly to it from microphones on the side of your head or cameras in the front of your head. You, as a conscious being, will never directly experience reality. What you experience are echoes, signals relayed from neuron to neuron in a cellular game of telephone that ultimately passes a projection of the world to. And this projection is not perfect. There are flaws in that process that can crop up, that can warp the reality being fed to your brain. So in that sense, you're kind of already existing in a virtual world. You're living in a rendering of reality produced by an incredibly powerful processor. I mean, your brain is one of the most complex and dynamic computers that we know of in the universe. But just like a video game, what you directly experience is a representation of the world, not the direct actual world that we live in. So from that perspective, you've already been playing the world's most realistic video game. From the day you first open your eyes until the day you close them for the last time, you will exist solely in this representation that your nervous system feeds you. So while that speaks to the power of the incredible machine that is your brain, it sort of changes your relationship with reality. Reality goes from something that you are embedded in and will never escape to something that is several layers removed and kind of perpetually out of reach.